Okay, hi guys. Another video here on solving equations. I call this part B. We are just getting into how to solve equations without drawing tiles, but still organizing our work. So I think that's a key thing. So we are working on things like this. 3x minus 5 equals 1. And the process we're following to kind of organize our work is we're going to the equal sign, we're putting a line down the middle. We know the goal of this problem is to solve for x. We want to get x equals and some sort of answer down at the bottom. And we're basically thinking of all those legal moves we've learned where you can flip something over, you can zero it out, or you can balance it out. So I'm going to look at this problem and flip the minus 5 over. The minus 5 flips over, it's gone, so that you just have 3 x's. And the minus 5 turns into a positive 5. So thinking of it as unit tiles, you had 1 tile plus 5 tiles. Okay, that's 6 tiles. So 3 x's is equal to 6. And we're going to take those x's and we're going to divide them up into 3 groups. And we're going to divide the 6 into 3 groups so that we can solve for x. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now we talked in the last video about how in algebra, when we talk about division, that old school division symbol that we use, a lot in elementary school, we're not using that. We're using the fraction to show division, just to kind of prepare us for algebra. So fractions mean divide. Just kind of keep that in mind. So you might be wondering, how are these going to get harder? Well, there are a couple of other things we could introduce that we really didn't introduce when we had the algebra tiles. And one thing is this. Imagine we incorporate a fraction into our problem. So we take x and we put it in a fraction over 4. X over 4. And then we have like minus 3 equals, we'll say 5. Minus 3 equals 5. Well, we're going to solve this just like all the other problems. We're going to put a line down the middle of the equal sign. And we're going to solve for x by flipping tiles over. Starting with this minus 3 that's all by itself, I can easily flip negative 3 tiles over to make them positive, just like I always would. I'll cross out the negative 3. The 5 plus 3 makes 8 unit tiles, 8 tiles. But I still have this fraction. I still have this x over 4. But like we were just discussing, x over 4 in a fraction, again, remember fractions mean divide. And if you haven't already caught on to this, every time we cross this equal sign line, we're doing the opposite. The minus 3, when it flipped over, became a positive 3. So the opposite of division is to multiply. If you want to take this divide by 4 and move it over, we're going to have to multiply the 4 over basically to the other side. We're going to times 8 by 4. That's how this is going to move over. We're going to multiply by 4. And that gets rid of this, so we just have an x. And then we got to know what 8 times 4 is. You got to know 8 times 4 is 32. And that makes up my answer. So to get rid of a fraction, you basically have to multiply it to the other side. Now this is kind of a basic easy example, but we'll ramp these up and make them harder, and you'll still be doing the same process. So let's try one. Let's do another example. And this time, we're going to have 3 plus x over 2 equals negative 5. 3 plus x over 2 equals negative 5. You can pause the video and try it yourself and then see if you're getting it right. So we put our line down the middle of the equal sign. We're going to not mess with the fraction right away. We're going to actually kind of ignore the fraction and flip that 3 over and get that out of the way first. So just looking at that 3, you should notice it's a positive 3. There's no negative signs with it. So when it flips, it's going to become a negative 3. So let's cross it out. And then we have still the fraction, x over 2, equals a negative 5 and a negative 3. So if you have 5 negative units and 3 negative units, you have negative 8 units. Negative 8. And then we're just talking about, how do we get rid of a fraction? How do I get rid of that 2? Oh, that's right. I multiply it over to the other side. So I'm going to do negative 8 times 2 to get rid of it. So x is going to equal 8 times 2 is 16, and a negative times a positive is a negative. X is equal to negative 16. And there's my answer. All right, so let's do another one. What if you got something like this? What if you got 6 minus x over 5 equals 10? 6 minus x over 5 equals 10. We put our line down the middle. We're solving for x. Again, I'm going to ignore the fraction and flip that 6 over first. And it's just a positive regular 6, so it's going to flip and become a negative 6. And when I flip it over, I get 10 subtract 6 is 4. I still have this fraction x over 5. But pay very close attention. I flipped the 6. What's with that fraction still? There's still a negative sign. So we need to keep the negative sign. And that often gets forgotten. And then you end up getting the answer wrong. So be careful. That negative sign comes down. Now to get rid of the fraction, to get rid of the 5, I'm going to multiply it over and times it by 5. Times it by 5. Which means 4 times 5 is 20. But I still have a negative x, a minus x equals 20. And we don't want to solve for a negative x. So if you remember on the tile mats, if you have a negative x and you want to change it to a positive, it's a flip problem. You need to flip the x over. So I'm going to flip the negative x over and make it positive. But then I'm also going to flip the 20 over, just kind of do a little switch here, and make it negative 20 equals x. And now I have my answer. That takes care of that. So this is just kind of a quick video on how to solve when you have a fraction in the equation. And you'll notice that multiplying it over is the strategy. Hope that helps.